This year, the United Nations held its 63rd session of the Commission on the Status of Women, which takes a close look at gender equity and the empowerment of women and girls all over the world. Not to be left out, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service sent forward a contingent to not just represent the service, but the country at the UN headquarters in New York City.
Sometime last year, Mrs. Gia Gaspar-Taylor would have approached the Community Relations Department with respect to a program, the Foundation's program that she was doing with different groups in the country. The program is about making girls and boys more gender sensitive and really preparing our officers in their role of treating with girls and women in our communities. So naturally, we grabbed the program.
The contingent was made up of 2 sworn officers, Acting Inspector Ryan Duncan and a woman police constable June Ashley Smith, along with 1 civilian employee, Samantha Griffith, and community stalwart Mrs. Gia Gaspar-Taylor. The contingent was also treated to a surprise visit by the patron of the Police Wives Association, Mrs. Nicole Dyer Griffith.
Perhaps next year, a larger team of persons from the TTPS might be able to be afforded the opportunity to experience what this small team would have experienced, because not only did they have the actual experience of attending the event, but they also presented on some of the panels and did a fantastic job, not only for the TTPS, but for Trinidad and Tobago.
Really humbled by the fact that I was chosen to be on the delegation to attend the conference. It gave me that added edge in terms of learning much more pertaining to gender equality, the rights of women and young girls, as the case may be. And it also broadened my horizon and perspective in terms of what I'm going to bring back for the TTPS. That was great.
It was really, really nourishing for me, very thought-provoking. So it leaves you wanting more and expecting to come back to do a lot more work in my country.
I felt very humbled and honored attending this year's CSW. It was a monumental occasion, and I felt that the trust was placed in me by the TTPS to represent this unit as well as my country.
Making that happen, I think, was something that I want to pat myself on the back for, because at one time I thought it would not have happened. So that it was a pleasure to be able to arrange it and to have them there. It was my umpteenth time going to the UN, so it was, for me, not a big thing, but it was wonderful to be able to have them there for the first time, as I vowed to have women from the police service attending the conference.
For the persons who represented Trinidad and Tobago at CSW, the members and staff, Her Excellency and her staff at the UN mission literally adopted the Trinidad and Tobago contingent and went all out to ensure that the TT contingent was treated as if they were at home. I mean, literally going the extra mile of ensuring they had pillow ever so often. They called them into lunch and they were treated, or we were treated, as if we were just at home. And I want to especially thank Her Excellency and the support staff of the UN mission in Trinidad and Tobago, New York, as well as Donna Cox, who is the Consulate General for New York. They both went all out, and I want to thank them, especially for reaching out to the members of the TTPS contingent.
Each member of the contingent also had the opportunity to give presentations on major issues affecting gender equality across the world.
It was really a special experience for them. I was so very heartened and proud by the way in which they presented, the way in which they interacted, and they really held their own.
Well, I was very honored to be a part of 2 powerful sessions. One was with the South African NGO, where I was thrust into that position. They asked me for youth to be on the panel, and I was thrust into that position. And the other session looked at estimating the economic costs of violence, and that was with the network of NGOs for the advancement of women, in partnership with the network of rural women producers. And at both of those sessions, what I shared was the work of the victim support unit, and there were 3 areas which I shared upon. One was what our roles and functions with treating with domestic violence, gender-based violence, as well as with men, how we support our men, how they work together with us to address these issues. The other part, we looked at policies and procedures that we use to address these issues facing women and girls as well as men. And the last thing we looked at is how, moving forward with our programs, we could incorporate what we learned last year with the United Nations Foundation Training Program. What we could take from that in moving forward to address those issues with our young women, the girls as well as men.
Well, our real presentation was at least to identify the positives, right, in the economic costs in domestic violence, using our 117 new clubs, because our youth clubs are from 5 years to 25 years. And we would have shown them the different ways that we utilize that youth club holistically to empower from the youngest to the eldest. And that was enriching for me, given that information. It was well received, lots of questions were given after.
The UN Women set up an interview room, which we had interviews from 1 to 3. And I took along with me Inspector Duncan, who was overwhelmed because you had to be running from one room to the next to be interviewed.
The conference that is set that tone whereby you are looking at it through the eyes of the female, what she actually goes through, what she would have gone through, her perspective, her views. And I believe that more policies need to be put in place whereby men are more sensitive and can be sensitized in terms of the victim, how the victim would respond, and how you do that delivery, and how your partner, you bridge that gap in terms of the male-female aspect of it. That was awesome.
When asked for some words of wisdom that resonated with them, this is what they had to say.
Looking at ways in which you can empower others, you must first be empowered yourself, because there are about 1,000 empowerment programs, sessions, events, and so on all across the board. You must first identify what is your target, how you'd like to achieve your target, and exactly the trajectory that you're going to be using for that target.
I was left with one resounding quote by Mr. Anthony Guerrez, that's the Secretary General, and I love that quote, and I'll be using that quote right through my process. Push back against the pushback. So any pushback come to me, I'll be pushing back.
Former First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama, looking at when women and girls rise, the community rise with them. And when we empower women and girls and equip them with these tools, the society at the end of the day is better off.
Following the contingent return from the Commission on the Status of Women, the group met with Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith and briefed him on some of the discussions which took place at the conference. The knowledge gained will contribute to policy which is being developed as it relates to the establishment of a domestic violence unit within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.